everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is going to be about the June releases that I'm particularly excited about. So I think I counted, again, 30-something books coming out this month that I had my eye on. Now I'm only going to talk to you about 18, I think, of them today, but I will leave all of the books listed in the description below. There are definitely some that I'm not quite sure about and definitely want to, wait until I see more reviews before deciding whether or not I want to read them. I've also read a good number of arcs coming out this month, so I don't really want to go through all of them again. I will go through, I think, just one of them. So for the arcs that I have read, but I'm not going to really focus on that much today, there's The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu, which is an adult urban fantasy. There's Hairpin Bridge by Taylor Adams, which is an adult thriller. There's Neon Gods by Katie Robert, which is like a Hades Persephone retelling, and there's The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed, which is an adult fantasy. I'll link all of my review videos where I talk about those a little bit more in depth and go over the synopsis and everything. Listed those in the description below, but let us save a little bit of time here because it's probably going to be a long video anyway. So, like always, we will move our way through the month, and before we get started, leave a book emoji in the comments to let me know that you're here. So we'll begin with June 1st, and the first book I'll talk about here is For the Wolf by Hana Whitten. So this is an adult fantasy, and it seems to be like this fairy tale type quality, I think, to it. Our young woman is supposed to be sacrificed to the legendary Wolf of the Wood to save her kingdom. Red is the only second daughter born in centuries, and she has one purpose: to be sacrificed to the Wolf in the Wood in the hope that he'll return the world's captured gods. She's almost relieved to go, plagued by a dangerous power she can't control. At least she knows that in the wilder woods she can't hurt those she loves again. But the legends lie. The wolf is a man, not a monster. Her magic is a calling, not a curse. And if she doesn't learn how to use it, the gods have become will swallow wilder wood and her world whole. So that sounds really awesome. I am super excited for this. It's pitched as being for fans of Uprooted and The Bear and the Nightingale, both of which I love. So I feel very optimistic about this, and I'm assuming it has that same sort of fairy tale quality to it. This seems to be kind of a retelling of Red Riding Hood, it seems like. I don't know. Based on the fact that, she's wearing a red hooded cape and her name is Red. I'm intrigued by the fact that we've got captured gods in this world and that they've become monsters. I think that sounds really interesting, and it seems like a darker take on things. And I definitely want to know what kind of power Red has. That sounds exciting also. This just sounds like it has that sort of fairy tale quality that I really will enjoy, so I'm definitely excited for this one. The next book that comes out June 1st is The Darkness Outside Us by Eliot Schrefer. So this is a YA sci-fi survival thriller, I think. We have two boys alone in space. They're sworn enemies who are sent on the same rescue mission. Ambrose wakes up on the coordinated endeavor with no memory of a launch. There's more that doesn't quite add up. So basically there's evidence that indicates that strangers have been on board. The ship's operating system is voiced by his mother, and his handsome brooding shipmate has barricaded himself away. But nothing will stop Ambrose from making his mission succeed, not when he's rescuing his own sister. In order to survive the ship's secrets, Ambrose and Kodiak will need to work together and learn to trust each other, especially once they discover what they're truly up against. Love might be the only way to survive. So I think this is a male-male romance also, but I am very excited about this. It seems like, looking through Goodreads reviews, I've seen people kind of mention there is a survival type aspect to it, and I think that sounds very exciting. That's something that I really enjoy. Any sort of sci-fi leaning into horror or survival thrillers is something I really like, and this seems really cool, actually. I definitely want to know what has happened. Okay, well, why are these two boys alone on this spaceship, first of all? But also, what is this rescue mission like? What has happened to this point? I don't know, but I think, I also don't feel like it's great that the ship's operating system is voiced by his mother. That makes me think that she has died somehow, but I'm just making this up. I have no idea. But I definitely want to know, and, it seems like it's going to be pretty tense. The next book that comes out June 1st is Ace of Spades by Faridah Abike-Iyimide. So this is a YA thriller, and this sounds really fun. So this is pitched as Gossip Girl meets Get Out, so that sounds fun. But we've got two private academy students, and they're selected to be part of the elite school's senior class prefects, and it looks like, their year is off to a great start. Not only does it look great on college applications, but it officially puts them both, I think, in the running for valedictorian. However, after this announcement is made, someone who goes by Aces begins using anonymous text messages to reveal secrets about the two of them that turn their lives upside down and threaten every aspect of their carefully planned futures. As Aces shows no sign of stopping, what seems like a sick prank quickly turns into a dangerous game with all the cards stacked against them. Can they stop Aces before things become incredibly deadly? So that sounds really cool. I'm so excited for this. I really enjoy YA thrillers, and this seems like a nice thriller, but also like we've got relevant social commentary, I think. I'm particularly intrigued by the comparison with Get Out, but that also, like, I don't know. there were some ominous things in that movie, so, you know, who knows what's going to happen here. But I think this idea of this anonymous bully seems intriguing. I obviously, like, I want to know who it is and what they're doing, why they're doing it. Can they be stopped? I don't know. With this private academy setting, that is the type of setting that I really enjoy, so I'm really optimistic that I'm going to love this. So now we'll move to June 8th, and the first book I'll talk about here is Daughter of Sparta by Claire Andrews. So this is a YA retelling of Greek mythology. So we've got Daphne, who has spent her entire life honing her body and mind into that of a warrior, hoping to be accepted by the unyielding people of ancient Sparta. But an unexpected encounter with the goddess Artemis, who holds her brother's fate in her hands, upends the life she's worked so hard to build. 9 mysterious items have been stolen from Mount Olympus, and if Daphne can't find them, the gods' waning powers will fade away, the mortal world will descend into chaos, and her brother's life will be forfeit. So she's guided by Apollo, and her journey will go from the labyrinth of the Minotaur to the riddle-spinning Sphinx of Thebes, team her up with mythological legends such as Theseus and Hippolyta, and pit her against the gods themselves. So this is just a reinterpretation of the myth of Daphne and Apollo, and this sounds like such a fun time. I'm really excited for this book. Again, I've talked about this a million times, but I really love retellings. I love Greek mythology and just like mythology in general. So this is already like, yes, give it to me. But I am definitely intrigued. Like, Daphne seems like a really exciting heroine to follow, and she seems, like she'll be a fighter, and so I'm like super excited about that. But also, I'm curious to see how things go with Apollo. So I'm not super familiar with this particular myth. Like, I'm sure I've read it before, but it's just like not something that immediately comes to mind. So I'm definitely excited to see this take on it, and it seems like a fun journey. The next book that comes out June 8th is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. So this is an adult fantasy. I'm like so pumped for this. I have read Tasha Suri's previous books and loved them, so I'm like, yes, give this to me. So basically, we've got a ruthless princess and a powerful priestess who are coming together to rewrite the fate of an empire. So our princess has been exiled, and she spends her days dreaming of vengeance while imprisoned in some sort of ancient cliffside temple that was once the revered source of the magical deathless waters, but is now little more than a decaying ruin. The secrets of this place call to our other character, but in order to keep the truth of her past safely hidden, she works as a servant in the loathed regent's household, biting her tongue and cleaning the princess's chambers. But when the princess witnesses Priya's true nature, their destinies become irrevocably tangled. One is a ruthless princess seeking to steal a throne, the other a powerful priestess seeking to save her family. Together they will set an empire ablaze. So, like, does that not sound amazing? Yes. Give it to me. I'm so pumped for this. Like, I think it's going to be wonderful. I, again, really loved Empire of Sand in particular. So I think with the, previous books, there were some really great romances, some wonderful, like, strong female characters, and it definitely seems like we're going to get that again here. I'm excited for them to team up. I have no idea what to expect with this. I also like that we've got this, like, ancient cliffside temple thing. This seems like it'll be a really cool setting, definitely diverse. This is what I'm going to be for sure buying. The next book that comes out June 8th is A Dark and Secret Place by Jen Williams. So this is an adult thriller. We have Heather, who returns to her family's home after her mother's baffling suicide, and she makes this alarming discovery: stacks and stacks of carefully preserved letters from a notorious serial killer, who is known as the Red Wolf. And he's been in prison for over 20 years, serving a life sentence for the gruesome and ritualistic murders of several women across the country, although he's always protested his innocence. The police have had no reason to listen, but Heather isn't the only one, I guess, to have cause to re-examine these murders. The body of a young woman has just been found, dismembered and placed into a tree, the corpse planted with flowers, just like the Red Wolf once did. What did Heather's mother know? Why did she kill herself? And with the monstrous Red Wolf safely locked inside a maximum security prison, who is stalking young women now? So she teams up with a detective and hopes to get some answers for herself and for the newest victims of this depraved murderer. But she's going to have to speak to the serial killer and expose herself to truths she may not be ready to face. Something dark is walking in the woods, and it knows her all too well. So that sounds just wonderful. Like, I mean, obviously it's going to be a very dark story, but I've heard, or just like browsing reviews, it seems like it's going to lean into almost more horror than thriller, which is really exciting for me. Like, this seems like a story that I'm really going to like. I really enjoy reading books about serial killers as like this weird morbid fascination. So, I'm already pumped for this. I think this has some interesting questions of like, it even mentions here, like, how well do we know our own family and even ourselves? So I'm curious to see what is going on with Heather's mother, and also just, I don't know, I think the idea of a secret correspondence with the serial killer seems pretty interesting. So definitely pumped for this one. I think it'll be a really just fantastic horror/thriller with a, serial killer emphasis, and I'm definitely excited to check it out. The next book that comes out June 8th is The Hidden Palace by Helene Wecker. So this is an adult historical, I would qualify it as urban fantasy almost, but this is the follow-up to The Golem and the Jinni, which I read years ago and really adored. Granted, I would probably need to reread that before jumping into this, but that's fine because I loved it, so like, why not? So anyway, we have Chava, who is a golem, and she can hear the thoughts and longings of those around her and feels compelled by her nature to help them. Then we have Ahmad, who is a Jinni, and he's a restless creature of fire, once free to roam the desert, but is now imprisoned in the shape of a man. Fearing that they'll be exposed as monsters, these magical beings hide their true selves and try to pass as human. Just two more immigrants in the bustling world of the 1900s Manhattan. They were brought together under calamitous circumstances, and their lives are now entwined, but they're not certain of what they mean to each other. So they've both changed the lives of people around them. An heiress whose brief encounter with Ahmad left her with a strange illness that makes her shiver with cold, so she goes to the Middle East to seek a cure. There she meets Dima, a tempestuous female Jinni who's been banished from her tribe. But back in New York, in a tenement, there's a little girl who helps her rabbi father build a golem, not knowing that she's about to be sent to an orphanage uptown where the hulking golem will become her only friend and protector. So this spans the years from the turn of the 20th century to the beginning of World War I, and it just follows everyone's lives. And I am just so excited for this. I'm like super pumped that we are getting a follow-up because like I definitely remember loving the characters and just adored watching their relationship develop over the course of the book. I would definitely describe it as a more character-driven book, and you really get to follow these characters as they meet each other and just interact with other people, and it was just like such a magical, beautiful experience. I'm definitely excited about the new characters we get here and just like other golems and jinnies. Like that seems really interesting to me, and I'm curious to see how that will affect Chava and Ahmad. Now we'll move to June 15th, and the first book I'll talk about here is $1 Million Demon by Kim Harrison. So this is an adult urban fantasy, and this is the latest installment in the Hollow series, which I've been reading for years. I've really enjoyed it. It's super fun. There's, a lot of witches, demons, there's elves, other supernatural creatures. It's super fun, definitely like an auto-buy series for me. So basically here, we've got the new master vampire of Cincinnati who has arrived, and she wants our main character, Rachel, out. No matter where Rachel goes, this master vampire is there, threatening her allies, causing citywide chaos, and to add insult to injury, even forcing Rachel out of her current quarters. Ever since, basically, there have been some things that happened with the vampires, and these vampires' longtime ascendancy has been broken. So now, this master vampire sees eliminating Rachel as the key to consolidating her own power. Rachel has no desire to be enthralled or killed, though, and she's terrified of what may happen to the city if like Constance, this vampire, forces a return to the ancient ways. She can't stand alone, and I think if she refuses to step up into a role in Cincinnati, I'm trying to like be vague and not spoil things, the city will tear itself apart, taking her and all those who stand beside her with it. So, oh boy, I'm so excited to see what happens next here. I, again, have loved this series so much. Main Hollow series had been concluded, and I think the book before this one was kind of like a return to the Hollows. It's definitely exciting to revisit a world that I really know and love. There are a lot of plot threads about moving forward and just like changes in general, so I want to see where all of those go. I think we've had some new enemies introduced, and I definitely want to know more about this new master vampire, so I think that'll be fun. I'm hoping that we do get to see more of some characters that I really like Ivy in particular, who is one of Rachel's vampire friends. And yeah, I'm just really excited to keep getting more books in this world, and I'll definitely be picking this up. The next book I'll talk about that comes out June 15th is The Cruelest Mercy by Natalie May. So this is the sequel to The Kinder Poison, which I read last year, I think, and really enjoyed. This is a YA fantasy, and basically we've got our main character, Zaru, who is sworn off adventures after the events of the first book, which in the first book, Zaru is essentially like chosen to be the human sacrifice in this competition between heirs to the crown. It was really exciting. There were a lot of really funny moments. While the crown prince navigates the looming threat of war, Zaru just wants to figure out what the future has. One of the other princes returns with a shocking claim that he's the true winner of the crossing and the rightful heir, and he has the god's mark as proof. Even more surprising, he's not the only one. So Zaru somehow also has this same mark, giving her the right to the throne. So that sounds really interesting, and so she doesn't really want to let the kingdom fall into the wrong hands. Zaru and all of her allies are going to have to race against the clock to try to find a way to stop this, because once he's crowned, there's no telling what horrors he'll unleash to win the war. She's willing to do whatever it takes to stop this, but to stop a villain, is she willing to become one herself? So oh my god, I'm so excited for this. Like I said, I really enjoyed the first one. Also, like, both of these covers are just really gorgeous. I love how bright and colorful they are. Zaru was a really great main character. She was witty and entertaining and just, like, super fun to follow. The first book was kind of setting us up for some ominous things to happen, which, like, whoa boy, it sounds intense here. This is going to be a really fun sequel to The Kinder Poison, and I really can't wait to see how the story continues. The next book that comes out June 15th is Don't Hate the Player by Alexis Nedd. So this is actually, I think, a YA contemporary / romance, and it's a little unusual for me. I don't read that much in this area, but the main thing that kind of drew my eye was that it takes place in the world of competitive gaming, so I think that sounds super fun. But anyway, our main character, Emilia, is living a double life. By day, she's a field hockey star with a flawless report card, but by night, she's kicking virtual ass as the only female member of a highly competitive esports team. She's mastered the art of keeping her two worlds thriving, which hinges on them staying completely separate. That's in part to keep her real-life persona, but also for her own safety, since girl gamers are often threatened and harassed. When a major esports tournament comes to her city, she's determined to prove herself to her team and the male-dominated gaming community. But her perfectly balanced life is thrown for a loop when a member of a rival team recognizes her. So Jake has had a crush on Emilia since he was 10 years old, and when his underdog esports team makes it into the tournament, he's floored to discover she's been leading a double life. And I guess the fates bring them together as they work to keep her secret, even as the pressures of the tournament and their non-gaming world threaten to pull everything apart. So this sounds really great. The big draw for me here is that we do have this gaming aspect to it. Like, I am by no means a professional gamer. Like, I am a very casual gamer, but I do enjoy playing video games. I think it's really interesting for me to read about it, and this works particularly well, I think, for me with, like, YA contemporaries. And I'm, definitely intrigued by the romance. I've got some high stakes here of just, like, keeping, things private. Going on with, like, this whole gaming aspect, I think it is pretty interesting to me to read about, like, women in gaming, because, yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely... Like, I never use headphones or anything like that when I game. I mean, I don't play that many games that are, like, competitive or, with other people that I don't know. But yeah, like, I mean, there's definitely... Girl gamers are, in fact, threatened and harassed a lot. So I think it's just interesting to read about that. I'm definitely excited to see what Alexis Nedd's take on this is. So I think that this is going to be a really fun book. The next book that comes out June 15th is Blood Like Magic by Liselle Sambury. So this is a YA urban fantasy. It's like, after years of waiting for her calling, which is a trial that every witch must pass in order to come into their powers, the one thing Voya didn't expect was to fail. When her ancestor gives her an unprecedented second chance to complete her calling, she agrees, and is horrified to find out that her task is to kill her first love. And this time, failure means that every Thomas witch will be stripped of their magic. So she's determined to save her family's magic no matter the cost. The problem is she's never been in love, so for her to succeed, she's gonna first have to find the perfect guy, and fast. Fortunately, there's a genetic matchmaking program that has just hit the market. So her plan is to join it, fall in love, complete her task before the deadline. What she doesn't count on is being paired with the infuriating Luke. How can she fall in love with a guy who seemingly wants nothing to do with her? With mounting pressure from her family, she's caught between her morality and her duty to her bloodline. And if she wants to save their heritage and Luke, she's gonna have to find something her ancestor wants more than blood. And in witchcraft, blood is everything. So I'm really excited about this. I think that sounds like a really fun time. Obviously, I love urban fantasy, so like any new urban fantasy that sounds exciting, I'm like all here for it. But this seems really fun. Like I am also just intrigued about this genetic matchmaking program. Like that sounds entertaining, but also it seems like we kind of have an enemies to lovers romance, maybe. So that should be fun. But also this seems like a darker magic. Like what is going on here with this ancestor wanting her to kill somebody? Like, my God, that sounds very intriguing, but I think that'll be like a fun, darker take on things. I seem to remember that this takes place in Canada somewhere. I'm seeing something about like Voya is a Black Canadian girl with Trinidadian roots, so that should be interesting. And hopefully we get some like pretty cool magic here. I'm definitely curious about that. I mean, obviously, like, it seems like there's blood magic, so that sounds fun. The next book that comes out June 15th is The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. So this is an adult, fantastical historical romance. So we have Cecilia, who is the ideal Victorian lady, but she's also a thief. Like the other members of the Wisteria Society crime sorority, she flies around England, drinking tea, blackmailing friends, and acquiring treasure by interesting means. Sure, she has a dark and traumatic past and an overbearing aunt, but all things considered, it's a pleasant existence, up until the men show up. So we've got Nedd, who's a sometimes assassin who's smitten with Cecilia from the moment they meet. Unfortunately, that happens to be when he's under direct orders to kill her. His employer, Captain Morvath, who possesses a Gothic abbey bristling with cannons and an unbridled hate for the world, intends to rid England of all of its presumptuous women, starting with the Wisteria Society. Nedd has plans of his own, though, but both men have made one grave mistake: never underestimate a woman. So I guess Cecilia is forced to team up with her handsome would-be assassin to save the woman who raised her, hopefully proving once and for all that she's as much of a scoundrel as the rest of them. So this just sounds really delightful. It seems like it's going to be really funny. This just seems like we're going to have a lot of opportunities for hijinks and just hilarious, witty moments and like fun banter, so I'm super excited for that. I am definitely excited for this enemies to lovers romance. I think we're going to have a really fun cast of characters here. And I mean, just like even reading this description makes me laugh a bit. Cecilia seems like she's going to be a pretty strong female character. I like that she's a thief, and like also I like that our love interest is a sometimes assassin / pirate. The next book that comes out June 15th is The Layover by Lacie Waldon. So this is an adult romance, and basically after 10 years as a flight attendant, Ava is poised to hang up her wings and finally put down her roots. She's got one trip left before she bids her old life farewell, and she plans to enjoy every second of it. But when she discovers that former pilot Jack, the absurdly gorgeous, ridiculously cocky man she's held a secret grudge against for years, is on her flight, and he evidently flirts with her as if he doesn't remember the role he played in the most humiliating night of her life. Good thing she never has to see him again after they land, but their plane encounters mechanical problems, and what should have been a quick stop at the Belize airport suddenly becomes a weekend layover. Getting stuck on a 3-hour flight with her nemesis was bad enough, but being stranded with him at a luxury resort in paradise? Even with the sultry breeze and white sand to distract her, it'll take all the rum punch in the country to drown out his larger-than-life presence. Of course, the more time she spends with him, the more she begins to second-guess everything she knew about him and everything she thought she wanted from her life. And all too soon, she may have to choose between keeping her feet on the ground and her head in the clouds. So this sounds like a really fun romance. I particularly like that we've got this tropical layover. I've actually been to Belize, so I'm very excited to have this sort of setting. I think that this seems like a really fun summer romance. And, you know, I think, again, we've got enemies to lovers romance. Like, who's surprised here that is something I enjoy? I'm ready for this. Now we'll move to June 22nd, and the first book I'll talk about here is Star Eater by Kerstin Hall. So this, I think, is an adult, like, fantasy / sci-fi / horror. I'm not exactly sure how to categorize it, but I'm excited for it. So our main character, Faridah, will avoid pregnancy if it kills her, and one way or another, it will kill her. Though she's able to stomach her gruesome day-to-day duties, the reality of preserving the sisterhood of Atrium's magical bloodline horrifies her. She wants out, whatever the cost. So when a shadowy faction approaches her with an offer of escape, she leaps at the opportunity. As their spy, she gains access to the highest reaches of the sisterhood and enters a glittering world of opulent parties, subtle deceptions, and unexpected bloodshed. So we've got this perilous and uncanny world where even the most powerful women are forced to choose what sacrifices they will make so that they might have any choice at all. It definitely seems like it's going to be a darker book, but I am totally here for this and want to find out what's going on. I see people mentioning bureaucratic priestesses who practice cannibalistic magic. There's zombies with some sort of hideous twist. Like, that seems up my alley. And there's also, like, magical lace weapons. I don't know what that means, but I am so excited to find out. This seems like a really fun mashup of genres that I really love. So now we'll move to June 29th, and the first book I'll talk about here is To Sir with Love by Lauren Layne. So this is another adult romance. So I've actually read an arc of this and really loved it, so I just wanted to mention it again here. So it's a very similar premise to You've Got Mail. So our main characters meet on a blind dating app, and of course, they're rivals. So Gracie is trying to make the best out of every situation, but her father dies just months after a lung cancer diagnosis, so she kind of sets aside her passion for art to take over his champagne shop. But she finds out that the profit margins are being squeezed perilously tight, and complicating matters further, a giant corporation headed by the impossibly handsome but irritatingly arrogant Sebastian is proposing a buyout. But she really does not want to throw away her father's dream. And so she's like really overwhelmed and like doesn't want to talk to her friends and family that she's having second thoughts about the shop, and so she seeks advice and solace from someone she's never met, the faceless Sir with whom she's connected on a blind dating app where matches get to know each other through messages and common interests before exchanging real names or photos. But you know, of course, she finds herself falling for Sir online, but she has no idea that she's already met him in real life and that they can't stand each other. So this was just like absolutely adorable. It's a very fluffy, feel-good story. When I read it, I found myself smiling and laughing, and it's just like a really humorous, bingeable type of quality to it. There's a lot of, you know, like fairy tale type qualities, and it's just like, oh my god, it's just so beautiful and just such a fun time. You know, I think Gracie is just a wonderful protagonist to follow. She's really sweet and cheerful and like very earnest. I just loved her so much. I think Sebastian is pretty gruff at first, but he's also like secretly pretty sweet. And I just think that the romance was really believable, and I liked how we had this blind dating app situation being involved as well. We also had some really great side characters, and I just had such a wonderful time with this, so I wanted to mention it again here. The next book I'll talk about that comes out June 29th is That Weekend by Kara Thomas. So this is a YA thriller. So we have three best friends, a lake house, a secret trip. What could go wrong? No, but it was supposed to be the perfect prom weekend getaway, but it's clear that something terrible happened when Claire wakes up alone and bloodied on a hiking trail with no memory of the past 48 hours. But everybody wants answers, most of all Claire. She remembers Friday night, but after that, nothing. And now Kat and Jesse, her best friends, are missing. What happened on that mountain? Where are they? And Claire knows that the answers are buried somewhere in her memory, but as she's learning, everyone has secrets, even her best friends, and she's pretty sure she's not going to like what she remembers. So this seems like such a fun thriller. I'm curious to see if there are like any like survival elements going on, because like what happened in this weekend span that Claire doesn't remember? I have no idea. This just seems like a really fantastic, fast-paced thriller that I definitely want to check out. The next book that comes out June 29th is Star Wars: The Rising Storm by Kevin Scott. So this is the next adult installment of the High Republic series. You know, we've had the great hyperspace disaster in the previous one, and the Republic is continuing to grow, bringing more worlds together under a single unified banner. Under the leadership of the Chancellor, the spirit of unity extends throughout the galaxy with the Jedi and the newly established Starlight Beacon Station at the Vanguard. In celebration, the Chancellor plans the Republic Fair, which is a showcase of the possibilities and the peace of the expanding Republic, a peace that the Jedi hope to foster. So we've got some characters, some Jedi, I think, joining the event as ambassadors of harmony, but as the galaxy turns towards the fair, so does the fury of our enemies. So the leader of this group is intent on destroying the unity, and his storm descends on the pageantry and celebration, sowing chaos and exacting revenge. As the Jedi struggle to curb the carnage of this rampaging group, they come face to face with the true fear their enemy plans to unleash across the galaxy, the kind of fear from which even the Force cannot shield them. So that sounds awesome, actually. So I think, you know, for me, Light of the Jedi was a little bit weaker in terms of the Star Wars books, but it's still like a really interesting time period, and I definitely want to learn more about, you know, like what's going on. It's like a completely new era, and it's the heyday of the Jedi, and of course, like, I'm all here for the Jedi and their powers, so I'm really hoping that this will give us an opportunity to meet more of these Jedi and get to know them better, but also, like, I think with Light of the Jedi, the enemy was the character that stood out to me the most, so I'm like super excited to see him again here, and I'm definitely curious to learn more about like what their ultimate plans are. The last book I'll talk about today comes out June 29th, and that's Gearbreakers by Zoe, Hana, Mikuta. So this is a YA sci-fi, I believe. The shadow of Godolia's tyrannical rule is spreading, aided by their giant mechanized weapons known as wind-ups. War and oppression are everyday constants for the people of the Badlands who live under the thumb of their cruel Godolia overlords. One of our characters is a Gearbreaker, a brash young rebel who specializes in taking down wind-ups from the inside. When one of her missions goes awry and she finds herself in a prison, she meets another character who's a cybernetically enhanced wind-up pilot. At first, she sees Sona as her mortal enemy, but Sona has a secret. She has intentionally infiltrated the wind-up program to destroy Godolia from within. As the clock ticks down to their deadliest mission yet, a direct attack to end Godolia's reign once and for all, Eris and Sona grow closer as comrades, friends, and perhaps something more. I mean, the main draw for me here is that we've got, like, mecha fighting machines, so, like, that seems super fun. That's something that I do enjoy. It mentions as being perfect for fans of Pacific Rim, Red Rising Saga, and, like, that definitely draws my attention here. And I think, again, we've got girls on the opposite sides of the war, so, like, I don't know if it's going to be an enemies to lovers romance. Kind of seems like they're going to team up together and, fall for each other, so I'm excited for that. Cybernetically enhanced people / this pilot, like, that seems pretty cool. I want to know, like, what kind of enhancements she's got here. It also seems like these mechas are, like, deities, and that seems really intriguing. So that'll do it for all the books that I'm going to talk about today. So let me know in the comments if you think you're going to pick up any of these books. For your question of the day, what books are you excited about that are coming out in June? So I do have a Discord channel, and if you want to join that, the link's in the description below. I hope you're all having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, as that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.